Hello from the Dukascopy TV studio in Geneva. We're talking about the Swiss inheritance taxation system together with Denis Berdoz. He is partner from Baker and McKenzie, Geneva. Mr. Berdoz, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
So there is a public initiative coming up which is going to change the Swiss inheritance taxation system. Could you outline what this popular initiative is about?
Yep. There will be indeed a national vote taking place in June on an initiative proposing the introduction of a federal inheritance and gift tax. In a nutshell, if this initiative is accepted, we will have a federal gift and inheritance tax levied on any property passing, being given or passing because of death at the uniform rate of 20%. Today, gift and inheritance taxes are levied only at the cantonal level, and the cantons have mostly adopted a system where transfers between close family members are usually not taxed or taxed at a very low rate, and the rate increase as property passes from a decedent or a person making a donation to someone which is not a close family member. So the 20% would be a massive increase for transfer between close family members, because most cantons do not tax transfer between parents and children or between spouses. On the other hand, when the transfers are between non-related parties, the tax can be really as high as 50% in many cantons, so the 20% would be a decrease. Because most of the transfers are made between close family members, there would be an expectation from the proponents of the initiative that 3 billion of tax revenues would be generated, 2/3 being used to finance the AVS, the old survivor scheme pension, and 1/3 would go to the canton. So the persons that would be affected by this new tax would be any person making a gift, whether Swiss or foreign citizen domiciled in Switzerland, and all the assets owned by persons domiciled in Switzerland at the time of their death. There are very little exceptions. The major exceptions are, number one, that transfer between spouses would not be taxable, that there is a free amount of total 2 million Swiss francs that will not be taxed when passing from a deceased or a donor to other persons. This is to a little bit exempt the middle class from this taxation. That's at least the purpose of the proponents. And there are also an exception for the transfer of agricultural business, and a possibility, but which is not well defined, of applying a reduced rate and probably a lower value for transfer of businesses. Finally, if the initiative is adopted, the new law or the new system would enter into force in 2017, effective from 1st of January 2017.
Would there be any retroactive aspects be important for that?
Yeah, this is one of the important aspects that has been discussed. There is indeed a retroactive element in the proposal, and that relates to the 2 million of free amount that can be transferred. Basically, all gifts made from January 1st, 2012 would be already included in that 2 million free amounts, so that for any transfer by death, if there was a previous donation made prior to the entry into force of the law, but after January 1st, 2012, then the 2 million free amount would be already absorbed. And this is the reason, by the way, why in Switzerland many families started to make gifts before the end of 2011 in a way to anticipate this retroactive effect. The question is whether this is legal or not. To the extent that the retroactive effect is incorporated in the legal disposition, which will be part of our constitution, then it would be legal, just because the people in Switzerland would have expressly adopted the retroactive effect.
So if such a legislation would be adopted, how would it affect family businesses, small businesses, and maybe also lump sum taxpayers?
Yeah, I think one of the big concerns was transfer of family businesses. Typically, again, under most cantonal legislation today, this can be transferred from parents to children without a taxation, or perhaps a very low rate of taxation in certain cantons. Today, these transfers would be basically taxable. There is certain possibility to reduce the rate, reduce the value, but it's not defined yet. We only know that for agricultural businesses they would not be taxed. And there is also two conditions, is that the heirs must continue to carry out the enterprise that they may have inherited from their parents for a minimum period of 10 years. So if they do that, the taxation would be either reduced, if finally we have a reduced taxation rate, but if they were to sell their businesses within 10 years, then the full rate would automatically kick retroactively.
Mm-hmm. And lump
sum taxpayer, basically no special rules, so they would be affected by the new legislation if it is adopted. There are a few cantons, Canton of Vaud being one good example, where lump sum taxpayers are subject to a lower rate of inheritance and gift tax. Obviously, if the new law passes, then the normal rate would apply to them too. Between spouses, not much differences, because again, in most cantons today there is no tax levied between spouses, so the new legislation would not change that aspect. Because we have this 2 million free share, perhaps from a tax planning point of view, the spouses should find a way to kind of equalize their wealth if they can, so that you can duplicate the 2 million free amount.
Thank you. And finally, would an adoption affect or would it abolish the cantonal legislations that is already in place?
Yeah, this is also a question which has been debated, is that does that federal system, which does not exist today, would simply replace the cantons? We would have to just abandon their taxation system. The prevailing view is yes. There was a little bit of doubt because the text of the proposal to be included in the Confederation was not expressly stipulating that this would replace the cantonal inheritance and gift taxes, but there are related provisions which clearly suggest that this would be the case. So if accepted from, let's say, 2017, which is would be the entry into date of the new legislation, the cantons would then have to drop their own system, which is also an issue which is debated, because it really touches on cantonal sovereignty, which is another aspect of the debate. I mean, the canton would basically lose an important privilege that they have today.
Mm-hmm. Denis Berdoz from Baker & McKenzie here in Geneva, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching. Do make sure to keep clicking back on the Dukascopy TV website for latest interviews. Have a great day and see you next time.